Friends, Taylor Payton here of taipeiart.com and artmaxion.com, here today to talk to you about being a freelance artist. So, let me just give you a little bit of backstory here on my journey thus far, some of the things that have worked well for me, some of the things that haven't worked so well for me, and hopefully that gives you some insight into deciding whether you want to continue pursuing this path or perhaps switch up your game a little bit depending on, what you feel or what you intuit. But I just want to emphasize really that everybody's path is unique and different, and this has just been mine thus far. So, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about what it means to be a freelance illustrator and concept artist. So essentially, my day-to-day is pretty simple. When I have clients, which is most of the time, I either communicate with those clients or I work on the work that they've already given me, which usually comes in the form of an email or a spreadsheet or some other document that allows me to get an idea of what they're going for if I haven't already been working on the project for a while. And then I make enough headway to the point where I feel like I would need some feedback from them or I need it approved in their sort of art director sense. And so I send it off via Skype or perhaps Gmail or whatever medium you use. So it's a lot like being a freelancer in any other regard that way. One thing I really believe in is talking numbers. And so what I'm going to tell you in terms of how much I get paid per commission is pretty much on the low end of freelance. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, personally, for me. Some of the biggest ones are, for example, I like to work for smaller clients because I get a lot more freedom in terms of what I'm able to create for them, utilizing my own style, methods, techniques, not super conforming to a pre-established style. So I think that's really important to note, but in general, I get $250 to $300 per piece, and that usually changes only, very slightly. My very low end is about 220, and that's for really simple work like game asset work, as far as like doing backgrounds or making a bunch of characters, or something that has a very repetitive process, so I can just kind of shut off and go through my permutations, and that is the low end of things. The higher end of stuff is usually like a really rendered illustration or something that has a lot of usage for them. So usage meaning that they would be using it for promotions or they can sell the artwork. I charge a lot more if that is the case, because then they can make more money on the back end, and which means that if I don't have rights to the artwork especially, then I'm going to be charging way more upfront. In terms of actually getting clients, what I've done is made sure that I have my ArtStation on point and my personal website, which is taipeiart.com. However, if you go there right now, you'll see that I've switched it over to just my personal project, Satellite Psychic Saga. And there's a reason for that I'll get to at the end of the video. But for right now, let's keep talking about the day-to-day and kind of what it's like to be a freelance illustrator and concept artist. So in general, when it comes to getting clients, what you really want to think about is who needs your services. Your services being the ability to generate ideas and imagery in a multiplicity of veins, whether those are, landscapes and scenes or interiors or objects, or again, characters, outfits, apparel. That's more the concept art side of things. A lot of that is used in games. People need to figure out, which outfit works best for which character, or defining a certain character's look, or maybe they want a really surrealistic landscape and you have the brain to bring that to the table as well as the skills. So that's more the concept art end of things, which I usually end up doing sort of a hybrid. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but let's talk a little bit more about the illustrative end of things. So as far as the illustration end of things goes, you're really going to be creating more of a narrative to your images, meaning there's a little bit more story behind it. You might see this with a lot of book cover work, which I personally haven't done a lot of, or in the sense of somebody just wants a private commission of maybe like a moment from their D&D campaign, say, where they felt like they triumphed or they lost a friend and they want to commemorate that with a commission. Usually for me, illustrative commissions, I kind of go closer to the 400 to 600 range, simply because they take me longer. And people usually want a little more polish, and my stuff tends to be on the looser end of things or more the drawing based end of things. So if I'm going to be doing a lot of painting, then I kind of have to charge more because it's a 10+ hour piece. So that for me has been my experience thus far. How I've gotten clients is typically through a lot of forums, a lot of posting in various groups on Facebook that are people looking for commission requests. And in the beginning, I would take pretty much any job I could, whether it was paying $25 or whether it was paying $100. And if you're just starting out, a lot of people say, don't do that. It brings the whole thing down. But I think that it's important to understand where you sit in it. I wouldn't say you need to worry about the community as a whole. I would say worry about yourself. Make sure you can pay your bills, that you have, some form of insurance if at all possible, that you are protected, and that you make decisions based on your own unique situation, rather than trying to, go to some flighty illustrator's ideals who's been in the industry for 40 years and had it change up on them several times in that duration. Always consider yourself first and foremost, and your unique kind of scenarios that you're going to go through. But yeah, a lot of the work that I've gotten has been through forums or through word of mouth. Typically projects I'm on last anywhere from just one piece all the way to like 6 to 9 months. So almost a full year of just, knocking out a couple pieces to, maybe 2-3 pieces a month. So it's really pretty steady work when you get a nice project, and I'm grateful for that. However, one thing that you're gonna have to get past as a freelance illustrator and concept artist, is you're really going to have to find you're going to have to find a way to really get beyond yourself and just take whatever feedback or revisions that they're giving you most of the time, because they're paying you, the numbers you need to pay your bills. And so they expect a fair amount from you, which can be creatively taxing and exhausting after a while, and can lead to things like burnout, especially if you're not taking care of other areas of your life, such as your health or your relationships. So for me, my journey in that regard has been sort of checkered. I've tried a lot of different things, not just illustration and concept art, even though art is very near and dear to me. I consider myself more of a polymath, wherein I do a lot of different things in different creative mediums and realms, like, for example, music production, or I've done some modeling and acting. I've also done some construction work, and I've studied, geometry and mathematics. So I've done a lot of things just to keep my brain from going crazy doing one thing. But the main thing that I have done is illustration and concept art. And again, for more of the smaller clients, so I have a lot more creative direction. That's because I prefer that. I prefer to be more authentic when I'm working on projects. But when it comes to, working with clients, usually they're pretty cool. You kind of screen them ahead of time, see if their vibe is a little weird, see if they're going to ask too much. But a lot of that will come with experience. I think the main things to remember and the main things to take away are that you should really consider what it is you're trying to do artistically as your goals go. Are you trying to climb this industry ladder and get into a studio somewhere? Or are you trying to eventually create your own intellectual property and be able to work on that full time and do whatever style you want and whatever sort of story you'd like to unfold? Or maybe you want to make your own game or your own webcomic, in which case I would say freelance is a good way to supplement your income. But again, you have to weigh that with the cost benefit analysis in terms of if your numbers aren't shaking out. If you're doing a bunch of like $100 commissions and it's taking a ton of time and you're not loving the work and you'd rather be working on your own webcomic, there's no shame in taking a part-time job or even a full-time gig if it's going to be less stressful for you as far as meeting your bills and the other areas of your life. Taking into account that, freelance illustration and concept art at the lower tier of things can be sort of decent. I'd say I'm like low middle, just because I've been in the game on and off for a while and I get to save money every month, which is nice. But again, I live pretty inexpensively, pretty frugally, which you can expect if you have this sort of lifestyle. It's not like real estate or going and getting a, degree as a dentist or dental assistant. There's lots of work and lots of hours, and you may be working late and you might have some rough deadlines. But if it's worth it to fulfill your creative spirit, then I say that you want to perhaps consider doing this. I know of some artists, at least I've heard of some artists, and I won't name drop them out of respect, but I know that they've done 80K in the, you know, mid to high end of things, and the top of the pyramid makes closer to 200. So, but that is, you know, it's an outlier of this, and I want to be completely upfront about that. A lot of artists do not make that unless you're, you know, the top at a certain studio, or you've built a name for yourself and you've got that category of one, as Seth Godin calls it. And that's basically where they're asking for you by name. Now, that's no easy feat to do, and that does require some 80-hour weeks and a great deal of devotion to the craft. And again, my personal experience has been I've enjoyed, you know, playing in a lot of different realms and going pretty wide as opposed to super deep in any one of them. And so that's why I personally am moving more towards independent art and creating something that I feel I really want to make and can push myself really hard for, because I have the tendency to sort of just take enough client work to save money and then float for a while. And because I get really kind of tired of, you know, people telling me what to draw, quite frankly. And if you've ever experienced this, then it may be worth it to really find some super targeted clients that you really love to work with, and or finding a project where you've basically, it's your brain baby too that you want to take care of. Otherwise, it feels like you're just adopting a bunch of these projects as children and you're doing it for the money. And that is not really good for your mental health. At least it hasn't been for mine. And so again, independent art is something that I'm striving towards now. You know, opening up a Patreon, using Art Maxian to teach people, because that will allow me to progress and ascend, because I have done a lot of self-work and a lot of self-knowledge has gotten me to this point. Whereas for you, it may be awesome that you're doing freelance and you can still have enough energy to do your stuff on the side. But again, there's a lot of considerations. I just wanted to lay out my story for you in the most honest fashion that I could. So if this does sound like something you do want to do, I would encourage you to consider checking out my Art Maxian bundle on my website, tapeart.com. It's really affordable, has everything you need to know in terms of drawing and painting. It also has art commission specialists, which could help you ascertain commissions easier. That is something that I like to point people towards if they're trying to get in and test it for a really low sum. It's a really low barrier to entry. And again, there's obviously no guarantee that's going to be based on how hard you work. And I don't want to paint it as like this all bad picture, because there's good and bad with everything you choose to do. Like if you're going to be an Olympic weightlifter, you're going to deal with some crazy injuries, and that's just part of the game that you chose to get into. So if you're going to play the game, don't play the game halfway. Go all the way in as much as you possibly can while maintaining balance in other areas of your life in the best, most holistic way that you can possibly muster. So yeah, I suppose with that, I think that's enough to think about for now. If you want to check out Satellite Psychic Saga, my independent project that I'm currently kicking off and documenting the process for, then you can go to my website, tapeart.com, and read more about that, or you can support it on Patreon, where I'll be giving you rewards as a result of your support. There's only one tier, it's pay what you want, so however much you want to support is always greatly appreciated. I'm going to be making videos as often as possible in an effort to increase my audience, increase my reach, and start to connect with each and every one of you insofar as being able to kind of give you a insight into this life, into art, into other topics that may be of interest. You know, I might even take this channel in a broader sense, as is sort of my nature later down the line. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Take care and happy creating.